Today we have some very special guests. We have students from Nixon High School. Will you stand and be recognized? Welcome. Please be seated. We also have special guest students from Vidal M. Treviño School. Will you stand and be recognized? Other special guests joining us include students from Garcia Early College. Please stand and be recognized. Welcome, you may be seated. We also have special guests including students from United Day School. Would you stand and be recognized? Welcome, please be seated. We have three honor guests that are also sponsors of our mock trials. Senator Judith Zaffirini, Webb County Commissioner John Galo, and Texas Parks and Wildlife Commissioner Ana Galo. Other sponsors with us today include Sergio Mora from Frontier Radio. He is our sponsor. Frontera. It's from Frontera Radio. The court also wants to recognize the inspiration for our mock trials, U.S. Ambassador to Argentina, who is a former judge, Ed Prado, for his telling us about his program in San Antonio. He had been putting Santa Claus on trial for 20 years, and we certainly are inspired by his work. We thank Judge Ed Prado. And we also thank Webb County Zone for helping us, Patty San Miguel Tijerina. The prosecutor is Cecia Rodriguez, and her star witness is Gobernador Mentiroso. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, and I mean it. I really, really mean it. Nunca miento, nunca. I never lie about anything. Nobody tells the truth like me, and not the fake truth like some other people.
Thank you. The defendant, Zorro, is represented by his attorney, Iris Vasquez Guerrero. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And simply answer, I do.
I do. But to quote Shakespeare, Your Honor, methinks Gobernador doth protest too much.
Your Honor, I object to Zorro wearing a mask and a hat in the courtroom. It is not proper decorum.
I respectfully request an exception, Your Honor. Everyone knows Zorro by his sombrero and mask. Besides, they're essential for his safety.
Well, in the interest of courtroom security, I'll allow it. Ultimately, the jury has to weigh the witness's credibility, sombrero or no sombrero.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Gracias, Su Señoría.
You know, no one ever calls me Su Señoría. Most people don't know that that's Spanish for Your Honor, right?
Sí, mi juez.
Thank you for that judicial fun fact. Another witness for the prosecution is Alana Mentiroso. Ms. Prosecutor, did you subpoena your witness?
Yes, Your Honor, may we call her again, please?
Miss Alana Mentiroso. Alana Mentiroso.
Your Honor, she had breakfast with her father, Governor Mentiroso, this morning. Maybe she ate too many patitas de cerdo and tripitas de vaca, and we know that, of course, that can upset the strongest stomach.
Well, if she doesn't appear when her name is called to testify, then the court is going to execute a warrant for her arrest. To continue, the witness for the defense is Robin Hoodie. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Very well, you may have a seat. I understand the charges against Zorro are assault, property damage, and breaking and entering. Is everyone ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Will the bailiff and deputy bailiff please swear in the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, will you please rise? Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that you will listen to all the testimony today and decide these issues fairly? Do you swear that you will not discuss this case with anyone until after you have reached the verdict? You may have a seat. Your Honor, the jury has been sworn in and we're now ready to proceed.
Very well, before we ask for opening statements, the court wants to recognize another honored guest that has joined us. Here representing and on behalf of Commissioner Wawi Tejerina is Andrea Arellano. This time the court will ask, does the prosecution have an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution will show that Zorro is guilty of assault, which is defined by causing bodily harm to someone, property damage, which is deliberately damaging somebody's property, and breaking and entering, which means entering into somebody's property by force without permission to commit a burglary or other evil act. This masked maverick is a menace to Governor Mentiroso and his soldiers. The evidence will show that Zorro gleefully strikes them down, maims or destroys their property, and enters their properties at will. To add insult to injury, les pican los ojos. He carves his Z as a calling card to aggravate their irritation, just to poke them in the eye. Y ¿qué onda con la máscara? ¿Qué esconde? What's he hiding behind that mask? Les apuesto que está calvo y tiene ronchas. If I were bald and had zits, I'd wear a hat and a mask too.
Objection, Your Honor. Counselor is badgering the witness.
Objection sustained. Counselor, please be more respectful.
To continue, Zorro may be Spanish for fox, but he acts like a zorrillo. That's Spanish for skunk. And Lord knows he smells like one.
Objection, Your Honor. Does counselor intend to badger the defendant? No, stop.
The objection is sustained. Be warned, counselor, in this court, everyone is treated to be respectful, is expected to be respectful. But please continue.
Zorro finally was outfoxed and arrested, and it is your duty to hold him accountable for his misdeeds. I hope you like pudding, because today you're putting him in jail. When you hear the evidence, you most certainly will agree that Zorro is guilty of assault, guilty of property damage, and guilty of breaking and entering. Thank you.
Counsel for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please disregard those very tacky, totally cheap insults against Zorro, the evidence clearly will show that he is not guilty of any of those outrageous charges. In case you never heard of Zorro, Wikipedia describes him as one of the earliest examples of a fictional masked avenger with a double identity, a precursor of the superheroes of American comic books, like Batman and Robin. He risks his life to protect and defend the young, the old, and the poor from terrorism and bullying of Gobernador Mentiroso and his soldiers. Esos topos flojos son miedosos y cobardes. Those dumb, lazy, scared cowards could never outfox the greatest fox of all, Zorro himself. Our masked crusader never picks a fight or starts one, but he'll meet bullies and oppressors face to face no matter the odds. El Zorro no se raja. He never backs off. He fights only in self-defense and to defend others. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you most certainly will disappoint the prosecution when you hear the evidence and find Zorro not guilty.
The prosecution may call its first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Gobernador Mentiroso. State your full name for the record, please.
Gobernador Elfeo Mentiroso.
Where do you live?
In my Gobernador mansion on the banks of the Rio Grande with my daughter, Alana.
Tell the judge and the jury about this masked man in black who calls himself Zorro.
His fans call him El Zorro, or the Fox. My soldiers call him Robon, Ladrón, or Roba Chico. I say he's more of a Robra Grande because that thief doesn't steal anything small.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah, the court will agree. Sustained. The witness is directed to answer the question, but don't narrate.
Gobernador, when or how did Zorro cause you property damage?
One day, after breaking and entering into my armory, he destroyed a ton of dynamite and other explosives. Even my cohetes for my 16 de septiembre fiesta. He also single-handedly and deliberately destroyed our most effective tool for enforcing law and order, which is named after me, the famous Mentiroso Orca.
How can one man cause all that havoc?
It isn't just one man, it's Zorro. They don't call him Chaos for nothing. Puro chaos.
Did he ever assault you or anyone else in your presence?
Sí, güey? Oops, perdón, sí. Abogado. Pardon me, I was warned to call you Miss Attorney, not chick or ruca, anyway. Millones de veces.
Can you give us an example?
I can't count the millions of times he's thrown his black sombrero like a frisbee to knock my soldier senseless. Puro chapucero. Clearly it's weighted. That's cheating. No real hombre uses his hat like a weapon. Real men don't need to cheat.
But can you give us a specific example of his assaulting you?
His punch is a real sacamocos.
Excuse me, what is a sacamocos?
That's when someone hits your nose so hard that it goes spraying to whoever who's nearby. Except him, he always ducks. Then he uses his big black cape like a flying weapon. Makes me wonder, ese sinvergüenza, se cree torero, Superman, or Batman? He brings shame to bullfighters everywhere.
Are those his only weapons?
No way, Jose. I'm sure he doesn't have a license, but he has a concealed weapon, a knife, in his boots. He calls it his sacatripas, his gut ripper. But his assault weapon of choice is his sword. Open carry is legal in Texas, so he doesn't even bother to conceal it.
Has he harmed you in any way?
He's so egocentric, he carves a Z on our property, and even on us. That's a 2-for-1 crime, property damage and assault.
Did you say Zorro carves his Z on you?
Exactamente, Vicente. Exactly. That's particularly embarrassing because everyone in Laredo knows Z is Spanish for Zeta. Then people wrongly think we're branded members of a cartel from across the river.
Objection, Your Honor. That information hasn't been entered into the record. Now the prosecutor is assuming facts, not in evidence.
Well, that's what he's trying to do, Counselor. She's laying the proper foundation, so the objection is overruled.
Has Zorro ever assaulted you?
Si, senora. That commonly coward even Z'd me too.
No further questions.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Governator, that's a mighty fine scar. Does it hurt?
No.
Is it a permanent scar or will it go away?
Well, my mommy put some tuétano de perrito, lengüita de víbora, and colita de rana on it. As she sang, sana, sana, colita de rana. Dame un besito para hoy y uno para mañana. And she promised me it would go away. I learned a long time ago that puppy bone marrow, snake tongue, and frog tails heal anything, especially if it's administered with a kiss for today and one for tomorrow.
Your mommy? Okay, let's not go there. Can you give me any other examples of Zorro assaulting you or your soldiers or anyone else for that matter?
How much time do we have? He's taken on dozens of my men, sometimes at once. The vaquero vestido en negro has assaulted thousands of us for decades and decades. Some of my men have nightmares about that ominous cowboy in black.
Did you say decades and decades?
For decades and decades and decades.
Excuse me, sir, but how old do you think Zorro is?
Now that's a good question. All I know is he's been around for decades and decades.
How can that be true when, look at him. He doesn't look anywhere near 30.
He has to be at least 60. I think he's embrujado. Maybe La Llorona kidnapped him when he was a baby. And she and her bruja friends came and gave him special powers so he could fight with all his might, hurting others but never getting hurt, wounding others but never getting wounded, slashing others but never getting slashed, and never getting old. Aha, that's it. He's a brujo, a warlock, an evil sorcerer. The weeping woman bewitched him.
I see. Where does Zorro usually fight you?
He usually appears out of nowhere, like he crawls out of his foxhole when we're trying to enforce the laws in the barrios. Some say he's cunning and sly like an English namesake, the fox. I say he's sneaky like a fox, vicious like a snake, and stinky like a skunk. Viura viciosa apestosa.
Precisely what laws do you try to enforce that draw Zorro's attention?
Well, agachados, apachurrados think that just because they're poor, they don't have to pay taxes or feed the military. Those little people think they're above the law. So it's our duty to punish them justly under our rule of law.
And how precisely do you do that?
So when we smoke carne asada or any kind of grilling at somebody's pachanga or quinceañera, we just take it from their party for our dinner. Or when they've sold manzanas dulces, shined shoes, or sold magazines downtown, like Judge Villarreal said his grandfathers did, and they haven't paid their taxes, we take their profits. Those candy apples are delicious, and they make a lot of money.
How can you justify taking food and money from other people? From shoe shiners and street vendors, for goodness sake. Seems to me that's bullying and stealing.
Ay, por favor. Peasants are poor. If they have any money in their pockets, we know they haven't paid their fair share of taxes, so we take it. Unless Zorro appears, he always has a sarcastic greeting for us, such as, "Que rollo con el pollo?"
What does that mean?
What's up?
So is it your testimony that Zorro only appears to defend the poor against your soldiers?
Por supuesto. Absolutely. Here's another example. Our vatos all have a sweet tooth. The chavas del barrio won't give us any of their goodies, but they give Zorro all he can eat for free. They even concocted a special sugar candy honoring him, Zorro Pops. That's why my men hate him. What's he got that we don't?
Well, good looks and a buff bod for one. Or two. Smarts and skills for 3 or 4.
At any rate, my men confiscated all their Zorro Pops. We hate to admit it, but they're delicious. Riquísimos. So we brought some for you in the jury, mi juez.
Objection, Your Honor. Gobernador is trying to bribe the judge and jury.
The objection is sustained. Bribery is against the law, Gobernador. One more attempt like that and I'll hold you in contempt of court. And please, don't call me mi juez. I'm nobody's judge.
Sorry, Your Honor. You probably expect bigger gifts like other elected officials I know.
You're out of order, sir. One more disrespectful comment and I'll hold you in contempt of court and fine you $500.
Well, if you're gonna act like as proper as my grandmother, you should at least powder your nose.
You were warned, sir. You are hereby held in contempt of court and directed to pay $500.
One more question. What did you say your full name was?
Elfeo Mentiroso.
Elfeo Mentiroso? Here's a fun fact for you. Are you aware that when the words in Spanish end in a vowel, or in an N or S, as in your first and last names, the stress is on the second to last syllable, not the third to last, the way you're pronouncing your names?
Yes.
Would you pronounce your full name correctly based on those rules?
Elfeo Mentiroso.
Exactly. Gobernador el feo mentiroso. In English, that would be ugly liar. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what his parents named him. What do you think his enemies call him? No more questions.
You may step down. The prosecution may call your next witness.
The prosecution calls Alana Mentiroso.
The court will ask our sergeant at arms and our deputy sergeant at arms to call the name Alana Mentiroso outside the courtroom.
Alana Mentiroso. Alana Mentiroso. Name was called, Your Honor. No response.
It seems your witness hasn't arrived, counselor. The court hereby issues a warrant for Señorita Mentiroso's arrest and orders the sergeant at arms and the deputy sergeant at arms to execute it and not to return without her. Counselor, please call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. There is no other witness, and may I ask that when this witness arrives, may I call her out of order?
You may.
The prosecution rests.
At this time, the defense may call its first witness.
The defense calls Zorro. Please state your full name.
Zorro.
Just Zorro?
Just Zorro. Though I like to be called Z, and I sign everything with my Z.
Including his victim.
Objection, Your Honor. Counselor is testifying. She's a lawyer, not a witness. She can't be both.
Objection sustained. One more outburst like that, counselor, and I'm going to hold you in contempt of court and fine you as well.
My apologies, Your Honor.
Is there any significance to signing with a Z?
The sign of the Z is associated with Zorro, the friend of the weak and the poor and the meek.
Are you a Texan by birth?
No, but I got here as fast as I could.
What do you do for a living?
I'm in law enforcement, sworn to protect the victims with my life and will do so to my death.
Are you the same Zorro who stars with your Black Horse Tornado in movies and TV series and comic books? Sometimes portrayed by that Mongo, that hunk, just like you, Antonio Banderas?
That Zorro lives in classic superhero storyland. I live in this fractured Storyland and spell my name differently. ZORR-OH, with a hyphen in the middle and an H in the end.
Well, are you the same Zorro honored in the theme song with the words, "Out of the night, when the full moon is bright, comes the horseman known as Zorro. This bold renegade carves a Z with his blade, a Z that stands for Zorro"?
There are people who believe that I am.
And are you the same Zorro honored in that same song with the words, "He's polite, but the wicked take flight when they catch the sight of Zorro, the fox so cunning and free, Zorro, Zorro, who makes the sign of the Z"?
The same people believe that I am.
Your Honor, we have the prosecution's witness, Alana Mentiroso, in custody.
We will hear from you after the defense rest, Ms. Señorita Mentiroso, including any defense for not being held in contempt of court. Please be seated here in the witness area, close to the bailiff and the deputy bailiff, so that they can make sure that you do not leave.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't want to come.
Counselor, please continue.
Zorro, have you ever assaulted anyone, either in isolation or in combination with causing property damage or breaking and entering?
Nunca, never.
Is there anything you have done that you described legitimately and truthfully as assault, property damage, or breaking and entering?
Nada. Never. Nothing.
Well, Gobernador Mentiroso testified that you have taken on dozens of his men for decades and decades.
That's true. Sometimes 30 or 40 at a time. Nothing I can't handle. At least not the way that they fight, or don't fight, might be a better way to say it. Actually, Robin Hood says they fight like girls. But I say that's an insult to girls. My respect to the ladies.
Are you a bully or buscapleito, a bravucon who picks on defenseless soldiers?
Defenseless soldiers? First, they're supposed to be trained fighters, warriors. Second, I fight only in defense of the victims they bully at the time. Mostly old people, scared men and women, and sometimes sweet, innocent children. They steal their food and their money. Sometimes they pick on them just for fun, nomás por ser gachos. Like most bullies, they get a kick out of being mean.
Can you give us an example?
Easily. Once, some sweet little old viejitas were selling their homemade cajeta on the street. They grabbed their Mexican candies and said, "Ay, te guacho, cucaracho," as they rode away at carcajadas. No gentleman would steal from old women and call them cockroaches, much less cackle while they're doing so. They're just evil, just evil.
Did you, in fact, blow up his arsenal of explosives?
I did, and proud of it. No one needs an arsenal of explosives unless they're up to no good. I protect the people by taking action.
So that was an act of self-defense.
An act of public defense. And protection of the people against a military bully who squashes the people's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Isn't it unconstitutional to imprison people for being too poor to pay taxes?
Exactly. And certainly illegal to behead them for it.
Is that why you destroyed the Mentiroso Orca?
Double, ditto, exactly. Gobernador Mentiroso didn't explain an orca is a guillotine, and the prosecutor didn't ask him to. He used it to behead poor, delinquent taxpayers who couldn't afford to pay his oppressive taxes. I proudly destroyed it to save lives. Somebody has to stand up to that bully.
Does it bother you that Gobernador considers you a bandido, a criminal?
Me vale sorbete. Couldn't care less. However, to quote Homer Simpson, just because I don't care doesn't mean I don't understand.
I have no more questions.
Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Why do you dress like that?
Like what?
Why do you always wear all black with black boots, black hat, and a black cape?
Oh, this is the official trademark ZORR-OH attire, like Nike.
Okay, never mind. Let's move on. Where do you live?
With all due respect, as a law enforcement officer, I respectfully assert my right to privacy and decline to state my address publicly.
Gobernador testified that property and people were named with a Z. That would be your work, correct? Since you are the only Z around here?
Actually, she may not wear a mask. But there is a certain state senator from Laredo who also wears only black and signs with a Z. But I admit I'm the Z who gives them a little Z as a reminder.
As a reminder, is there a message in that Z?
Yes, to quote Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator, I'll be back!
Okay, how old are you?
Do I have to answer that?
Yes, and you are under oath.
I'll be 28 on February 28th.
28. 28. Then how can you have been fighting Gobernador and his soldiers for decades and decades?
I haven't.
Well, somebody has, so please explain.
When Mentiroso first arrested me a few years ago for failure to pay my taxes, I was awaiting to face the horca, the guillotine. I had no skills. My cellmate was a viejito who worked out and was in great shape. He was also an incredible swordsman, a fabulous acrobat, and an accomplished horseman, and an expert in weaponry and the martial arts. The old man was the original ZORR-OH, who trained me. We escaped from prison together, got into his hacienda in the mountains, and began my excruciating training. When he decided I was ready, I donned his black clothes, hat, and mask, and continued the legacy of ZORR-OH.
You escaped from prison? So both of you are fugitives from the law?
Here's a fun fact. In Texas and in the United States, it is unconstitutional to imprison anyone for being too poor to pay taxes or fines, or to hold anyone without due process of law. We were both held illegally, so from our perspective, we escaped the criminals, the bullies, who kidnapped us.
So why did both of you mercilessly harass and bully Gobernador Mentiroso?
To begin with, El Gobernador is the bully and the harasser. His mother should have given him lots of coscarones en su cabeza. A few knuckles to the head might have improved his personality. He loves to harass me with his annoying music.
What annoying music.
I'll show you. Hachi, hachi, hachi ho! Hachi, hachi, hachi ho! What does the fox say? I hate that stupid song. And it's written in English, probably about an English fox, not a Spanish, about a Mexican Zorro like me.
I agree, but isn't it true that you've harassed him back with equally annoying music?
Uh-huh. I answer with, who let the dogs out? Whoa, 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 whoa. What's wrong with that? Son perros.
So what's your beef against Gobernador?
I will tell you. Reluctantly, only because I am under oath. 20 years ago, the Gobernador and an army of 100 soldiers followed the original Zorro to his house and captured him while he slept. He burned the original Zorro's house to the ground, killed his wife, and kidnapped his little girl. Zorro swore revenge, but he grew old in prison. When he met me, we escaped so that he could prepare me to follow in his footsteps. He also made me promise I would find and protect his daughter at the cost of my own life. That is why I am here, to keep that promise. But I got arrested again, and the same way the original Zorro did. Fortune brought us together.
Reluctantly, Your Honor, no more questions.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Please stop that music. Although, at least it's not, what does the fox say? The defense may call its next witness.
The defense calls Robin Hoodie. State your full name, please.
Robin Woody Tootie Hoodie.
What is your relationship with Zorro?
We are compadres, carnales, and we always get together to play Loteria on Taco Tuesdays. That's Mexican bingo. We're also members of the International Justice League.
Who are some of the other members?
Oh, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, to name a few. But Zorro is my BFF.
With so many superheroes, why do we need Zorro?
I'm in charge of forest crimes. Others are in charge of metropolitan areas. Zorro's in charge of La Frontera, the United States border with Mexico. He is the only superhero who is truly bilingual and bicultural, like a typical Laredoan. He's special. As they say in the movies, there must always be a Zorro.
Why are capes and masks so popular with superheroes?
Well, Zorro was the original superhero. His costume made him look even more powerful than he already was, causing men to fear him and ladies to swoon. They called him Don Perfecto, Mr. Perfect. They all think he's a real mango, a hunk. I think he's cool. Other superheroes modeled themselves off of his brand, cape and all. Actually, Batman and I are most like him.
Well, that's another fun fact, especially for fans of superheroes. What do you and Zorro have in common?
We both devote ourselves to protecting the poor and the downtrodden from greedy, corrupt, cowardly officials. Zorro calls them marranos, grasosos, and mentirosos who feed on the scraps of the poor. They really are lying, greasy pigs.
I know why you call them greedy and corrupt, but why cowardly?
Because they only pick on the young, the old, and the poor, never on the rich and the powerful. They also pick on the meek and the weak, never on the strong or the brave. You won't find them doing their mischief at the country club, especially since so many members legally carry concealed weapons or even open carry. I call them pulgas and garrapatas, fleas and ticks. They'd suck out the lifeblood of the poor if they could.
Do you ever carve an R or an RH on property or on the soldiers you fight?
Never. But I have to admit, sometimes I carve a big Z on them just for fun and to confuse them. Then everyone thinks that Zorro was there. They think he's everywhere.
Have you ever heard of Zorro starting a fight for fun, picking on the Gobernador, or in any way committing assault, property damage, or breaking and entering?
Never.
Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Isn't it true you're called Robin because you're always robbing the rich to give to the poor?
Objection, Your Honor. Counselor is being argumentative and her question is irrelevant and disrespectful.
Sustained. Be respectful, counselor.
Robin Hoodie, have you ever worked side by side with Zorro?
No.
Then how do you know he's never started a fight?
Because the International Justice League has a code of ethics. We only defend and protect, and he's the chair of our ethics committee.
But you admit that in the process of fighting others, Zorro has carved his Z on them and on their properties, and sometimes entered their homes or offices without being invited.
How else could he do his job?
Exactly. Do you know his true identity?
Santa Cachucha! Holy cow, no one has ever seen his face, but everyone knows his mark.
Why does he have to carve his Z?
Simple. He doesn't want poor people to get blamed and possibly sent to the Orca for what he did.
Z also stands for zits, zoiks, and zygotes, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That is irrelevant and immaterial. Besides, I'll bet no one in this courtroom knows what those words mean.
With all due respect, Your Honor, zits means pimples. anyone who watched Scooby-Doo as a child knows zoinks means oh no, or uh-oh. And zygote means stupid and immature. That's what I think Z stands for. Zits, zoinks, and zygotes.
With all due respect, Counselor, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. This is Texas. Speak English or Spanish. The objection is sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
We have no more witnesses, Your Honor. The defense rests.
Very well. Does the prosecution wish to call Alana Mentiroso?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Alana Mentiroso.
Please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I really don't want to. Only if I have to.
Well, you do, and now you're under oath, which means that lying in this courtroom is a perjury. That's a crime punishable with prison time. That's not exactly a fun fact. You may proceed, Counselor.
State your name, please.
Alana.
Your full name, please.
Alana.
That's okay. Just relax. Miss Court Reporter, we'll stipulate you are Alana Mentiroso, daughter of Gobernador Mentiroso, for the record. Is that correct?
It is not correct. Didn't you hear what Zorro said?
I don't understand. Please explain yourself.
It's why I didn't want to come. I always wondered why I was as good with swords and horses as Zorro. And only this morning did I find out why. It's also why he made you stop questioning Zorro. I wish you had continued.
Again, I don't understand. Why?
After breakfast this morning, I went to get some documents for today's testimony, and I found some hidden papers. It's all here!
What is this?
My life has been a lie. A lie. Una gran mentira! No wonder our last name is Mentiroso. That's perfect. Now I know. The man I thought was my father, Gobernador Mentiroso, killed my mother and kidnapped me when I was too young to remember exactly what happened. Now I do. Especially after hearing Zorro's testimony. I'm the daughter of the original Zorro.
That is unbelievable, unimaginable, unforgivable.
Exactly.
No, Your Honor, no more questions.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
If I may just have a minute, Your Honor.
That would only be fair. You may.
What is your relationship with the Gobernador?
Well, I always thought he was my father, but now I know he's my kidnapper.
But how would you describe your relationship with him? Are you close? Do you have a loving father-daughter relationship?
He's tried to buy my love with high-fashion clothes and jewelry, but those things don't matter to me. I've always wondered why we were so different, why I was better with the espada at sword fighting and horsemanship than he was, and why we disagreed so passionately about how he treated people. And now I know.
Please, could you explain?
I have vague memories of my real father teaching me sword fighting, horseback riding, and acrobatics. When I was a tiny girl, I must have developed muscle memory at an early age. The skills of the original Zorro are in my genes, in my DNA.
Please, continue.
I never approved of how the Gobernador treated the poor. I tried to change his ways, but he was a sabelo todo type of person, a know-it-all. When I met Zorro, I realized the difference between their two perspectives. I prefer Zorro's.
When and where did you meet Zorro?
When he was about to blow up the Gobernador's arsenal, we fought with swords, and I trapped him. Anyway, I was about to call the soldiers to arrest him, but he explained why he was there and what the gobernador was planning. I was horrified. Instead of turning him in, I helped him. Though I felt guilty about betraying the man I then thought was my father. I wish I knew then what I know now. Now I know my ancestry and my feelings. La sangre es más espesa que el agua.
I agree, blood is thicker than water. What is your relationship with Zorro?
We fell in love. We knew this was dangerous.
No, please.
Have some order, please.
We knew this was dangerous, and we couldn't figure out how to be together more often than secretly in the dark. Robin Hood stood guard for us whenever we did. I wanted to get married, but he always held back. I would sing to him, siempre que te pregunto que cuándo, cómo y dónde, tú siempre me respondes, quizás, 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 y así pasan los días, y yo desesperando, y tú contestando, quizás, quizás, quizás.
And in English, that means?
Well, I'll give you the gist of it. 1,000,000 times I've asked you, and then I ask you over again. You only answer, perhaps, perhaps, perhaps.
So romantic. But I'm sorry you've had to go through this shock.
I am in shock, but at least now I understand. Having heard Zorro testify, I only wonder why he hadn't told me everything before. And I'm dying to see my father, the original Zorro. I'm sure he'll bless our marriage. My fake father, my kidnapper, never would have.
From what you know about the star witness, el gobernador, and the defendant, Zorro in this case, do you believe Zorro ever committed assault, property damage, or breaking and entering?
Absolutely not. Everything he did while risking his life against Gobernador's equally corrupt troops to protect and defend the poor. My so-called father got what he asked for. Él tendió su cama. Déjalo en ella. In case you don't speak Spanish, that means he made his own bed. Let him lie on it. Zorro is indeed a superhero for our people. Who needs Superman or Batman when we have him? He is innocent, and El Gobernador is guilty.
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is making a legal conclusion, and only the jury can determine the guilt.
The witness was simply being responsive to the question. She can testify as to her opinion. Objection overruled.
I have no more questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
You are excused, señorita, and having heard the explanation for your failure to respond timely to the subpoena, you will not be charged with contempt or failure to appear.
Gracias, Your Honor.
We will now hear closing arguments. Is the prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what a drama. What a drama. Do not, however, let this dramatic turn of events regarding quién es padre de quién distract you from what your duty is here today. Who is whose father has nothing to do with the charges at hand. You heard Zorro admit and Robin Hoodie confirm that he fought dozens of soldiers and El Gobernador at a time. He broke into and destroyed their property and sometimes maimed their bodies with the mark of a Z, a zeta. That is assault and property damage. Crimes he couldn't commit with also breaking and entering. Even worse, Zorro voluntarily admitted he escaped from prison. That too is against the law. He and the original Zorro are fugitives from prison and should be arrested immediately. It's time to go fox hunting. That is where I wore my English suit. The ends should not justify the means. Defending and protecting the poor or anyone else does not justify breaking the law in the process. You and I are not above the law, and neither is Zorro. Shakespeare wrote, "A rose by any other name is still a rose. So is a criminal, no matter what you call him." In this case, we have a fox, English for Zorro, who acts like a skunk and whose actions smell like a skunk. El zorro es un zorrillo. Zorro has committed assault, property damage, and breaking and entering. He is a criminal, a bandido, pure and simple. It is your duty to find Zorro, who proudly signs his words with a Z, a zeta, guilty of all charges that are here before you today. Thank you.
Counsel for the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, frankly, I don't understand how the prosecutor has the audacity to even make a closing statement. Aunque con su cola entre sus patas. Given what we have just seen and heard, she should slither out, oozing under the door of this courtroom with her tail between her feet. She should immediately have dropped the charges against Zorro and pressed charges against Gobernador and Feo Mentiroso for corruption, kidnapping, and murder by beheading. File your complaints. I will. The charges against Zorro are outrageous and are simply ridiculous. He is a superhero manco who lives his life modestly and courageously in the service of others. In fact, he risks his life to protect and defend the weak, the poor, and the meek from despicable bullies like Gobernador and his soldiers. He doesn't run and hide, even when outnumbered, and Zorro no se raja. Never ever has he picked a fight or started one, but when somebody else did, he was there to protect and defend the victim. How can you possibly punish that? Besides, if you find Zorro guilty, you will set a precedent for convicting Superman, Wonder Woman, Robin Hoodie, and all the other members of the International Justice League. And where would our world be without them? The villains would have a field day, and the victims would be victimized even more severely. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I truly don't see how you can do anything else but find Zorro not guilty of assault, not guilty of property damage, and not guilty of breaking and entering. Then you can go after the real Zorrillo, the real skunk of this mock trial, Gobernador el Feo Mentiroso. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've now heard all of the evidence in this case. It's now up to you to decide if Zorro is guilty of any or all of these charges. Please use your 10 minutes wisely to consider all of the evidence that you have heard. At this time, bailiff, please escort the members of the jury into the jury room to consider the verdict. All rise for the jury. After we hear the verdict and after the trial is adjourned, our elected officials and honored guests will be invited to join new groups of students who will be photographed with the cast at the bench. First, however, it is my pleasure to convene you students as the court of public opinion. The purpose of our court of public opinion is to ask how you, the public represented by you students here today, whether you believe whether Zorro is guilty or not guilty. So I'm going to ask you the same questions that the jury is now answering. We will have a voice vote. If I can't tell how the majority feels, then we will have a standing vote. Are you ready?
Yes.
Very well. First, keep in mind that assault means causing someone bodily injury. If you agree that Zorro is guilty of assault, say yes.
Yes.
If you disagree, say no.
No.
The noes prevail. Second, keep in mind that property damage means deliberately damaging someone else's property. If you agree that Zorro is guilty of property damage, say yes.
Yes.
If you disagree, say no.
No.
The noes prevail. We have a third charge. Remember what breaking and entering means. Breaking and entering means entering someone's property or home by force to steal or commit another wrongdoing. If you agree that Zorro is guilty of breaking and entering, say yes.
Yes.
If you disagree, say no.
No.
The noes prevail. So, to recap, this court of public opinion has found that Zorro is not guilty of assault, not guilty of property damage, and not guilty of breaking and entering. Now let's see what the 12 jurors found. As we wait for them to continue deliberating and talking about the evidence, we have time for a question or two. Who has a question? Yes, in the back.
Can I have his mask?
Only if he gives it to you, because then you might get accused of theft or we might find you in trial. So if he willingly gives it to you, you may. Other questions? In the front, yes sir.
Where did you study at?
The question is, where did I study? I finished my undergraduate at Texas A&M International University and then studied law at the University of Texas School of Law. Other questions? Yes sir, in the back. What was the question? You'll be number 2 in line. Yes sir.
Can I have a cape?
Yes sir, in the front.
He has the better one.
No.
There's the answer. Yes ma'am.
How many years did it take you to be a judge?
The question is, how many years did it take me to be a judge? And the answer is, after graduating from high school, there's 4 years of undergraduate work, and then once you graduate from university, it's 3 years at a law school. So 7 years after high school. Yes, sir.
What was your inspiration for going into law?
The question is, what was my inspiration for going into law? And the answer is, I had a very good mentor at the National Science Foundation. And after talking to a mentor, I realized that some of my best skills could be used in the practice of law. So I encourage each of you to look and talk to someone that can encourage you and that can mentor you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Did you have any jobs before you became a judge that you liked?
The question is, what other jobs before I became a judge and did I like them? And the answer is yes. My first job was at Texas A&M International University at the School Relations Office, and I welcomed students to the university, gave them tours on campus. I absolutely loved that job, and it sparked an interest in public service. Other questions? Yes?
What made you proud to be a judge?
The question is, what makes me proud to be a judge? And I guess the answer is, I don't know that I'm proud per se, but I'm just delighted and just very happy. I consider it a big blessing that I can sit here and listen to people and tell me about their stories, their lives, and get to make decisions applying the law. And everybody gets an equal chance, and I get to give them a final resolution so they can go on. So I consider it a blessing and a privilege, really. Other questions? Don't be shy. The court has been informed that the jury has reached a verdict. All rise for members of the jury. The jurors are back in the courtroom. You may be seated. Ms. Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defendant and his attorney will rise. You may proceed.
We, the jury, find the defendant ZORR-OH guilty of the offense of assault. We, the jury, find the defendant ZORR-OH guilty of the offense of property damage. We, the jury, find the defendant ZORR-OH guilty of the offense of breaking and entering.
The jury has spoken and the defendant has been found guilty. ZORR-OH, I sentence you to 100 hours of community service. Your punishment shall be to establish a bilingual, bicultural, anti-bullying program. You're going to reach out to bullies and show them the error of their ways so that they will stop victimizing others. You're going to work with the victims and show them how to defend themselves against bullies while building up their self-esteem. Of course, you're free to share your skills in acrobatics and horsemanship and your skills in weaponry and martial arts with them, so long as you do it appropriately, wisely, and responsibly. The defendant and his attorney may be seated. Thank you, members of the jury, for listening carefully and making this important decision.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Sure, you may.
ZORR-OH has done so much for so many, and to comfort him at this time, may I ask a friend to sing his favorite song?
Well, this is highly unusual, but I don't hear an objection, so I'll allow it.
Ay, Jalisco, no te rajes. Ay, Jalisco, 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 de todo se da, es Guadalajara. La perla bárbara, de todo Jalisco es mi Guadalajara. Pablo, mariachis, a cantar con el alma. Guadalajara. Suenan esos guitarrones, cantar con el alma, con los talentones.
Wow. Thank you, Gigi Noriega of Webb County Court at Law 2 for that outstanding tribute to ZORR-OH. Students, thanks you and thank you to your teachers for being with us today. We hope that you have enjoyed this mock trial as much as you have learned from it. We're especially grateful to the director of our mock trial, Tony Bundock, and his director, Javier Sanchez. And we appreciate Moi, Makeup Artistry Headquarters, our sponsors who handle the hair and makeup, represented by Norma and Nelly here today. And I know that you have enjoyed the outstanding performances playing Gobernador Mentiroso, Mike Angel, Zorro, Jeffrey Blomquist, Prosecutor Cecia Rodriguez, Defense Attorney Iris Vasquez Guerrero, Alana Mentiroso, Desiree Perez, Robin Hoodie Mark Rodriguez, special appearance by Gigi Noriega, and bailiff Arnold Lozano. We are also very grateful to the author of not only your mock trial script and your handbook, but who is also one of the newest inductees into the Texas Women's Hall of Fame, our Senator Judith Zaffirini. Gobernador, El Feo Mentiroso, Zorro, and all of the cast will be available to be photographed with you. The elected officials and honored guests who are here are also invited to join us. Students, we hope that you have enjoyed seeing justice in action in today's Access to Justice class in the courtroom. You saw for yourselves the importance of obeying the law and what can happen when you don't obey the law. And I will remark that no matter what the court of public opinion is, as we saw today, it's the jurors that have the last word. Please come back to your Webb County Court Law 2 and tell your parents and family members that they're welcome here too. Court is adjourned.